Hello and welcome to the Research Insights. This is brought to you by Say What with support from the Norwegian International Assistance Fund as well as the Swedish Embassy in Zimbabwe. This is where we take a look into the journeys of the selected students who are part of the Research Fellowship Program. I am joined here by one of them and I am your host, Nicole. I'll ask my participant to say their name as well as the institution and what level you're in.
All right, thank you so much for having me. My name is Nadia Mutisi. I'm a final year law student at the University of Zimbabwe.
A final year?
Yes.
Pressure?
Yeah, lots of pressure.
I see that. So what was your topic of research?
Okay, I was focusing on abortion legislation. So I was looking at whether abortion legislation as it stands supports the right to health. And the conclusion was it doesn't.
It doesn't?
It doesn't.
What were the methods that you used to conduct this research?
All right, great. So when you're a law student, the way that we normally do research is we're looking at international treaties, we're looking at local legislation. So it was a desktop study and a doctrinal methodology of like looking at what other people have said about it. So like looking at text, whether it's case law, looking at what other people have written, articles, journals, and looking at judgments, international judgments.
So there's a lot of papers.
Yeah, it's a lot of papers, but it's also really fun because every single person who you read from has a different way of like authoring. So I looked at, one of the cases that I looked at was the Zimbabwean case of the state versus Mapingure.
Mm-hmm.
So this lady named Mildred Mapingure was taking the Ministry of Home Affairs to court because she had gotten raped during a robbery and she couldn't abort the child because of the can't call it a child, the fetus, because of the numerous processes that were involved. So that's one of the cases that I looked at. LC versus Peru, which is a case from the Inter-American Court of Human and People's Rights. So yeah.
Okay, you were doing, we see that you really did your
I did
research.
Go in and over, yeah.
But I think you're the only person, or rather part of a select group, that would call reading that much material fun.
It was so much fun. I cannot lie. I had so much fun because every single time that I was getting into a new piece of like reading or material, I was finding something very interesting. So part of like what inspired me to do this work was I had done an internship at the O'Neill Institute for National and Global Health Law. And some of the people that were supervising me at that institute were Lucia Bero Pizzarosa. She's at the university, Georgetown University, and as well as Dr. Nandagari from the London School of Economics. And they were focusing on self-managed abortion. So I was happy that in the work that I managed to produce, being guided by Professor Chere, I managed to like look at their work that they had produced on self-managed abortion. So it still felt like I had learned something early on in the year, and I was continuing to develop what I'd already learned in another different place, but with Say What.
Okay, so what were the challenges that you faced in your research? I hear you saying these big names.
So the biggest challenge that I faced in my research was that I had so much to do at school. And so I was constantly saying to Professor Cherry that I want to quit, like I can't do this anymore. And she kept on saying, no, you have to. And do you know what? I don't regret like continually like being tenacious enough to finish it or to see it to the end because I was really tired from like school and all of that. And I was just like, maybe I shouldn't be doing this. But she was like, no, you totally can. So yeah.
That motivation from someone
she really did motivate me and I don't regret it at all. So that was just something that really helped me. Mentors
being a push, being a driver. I just want to say, I have to ask, what are your recommendations? Or what were the recommendations that came from your research?
Okay, so I think the first thing that I recommended was actually a changing of the law. So you find that in Zimbabwe, right, when we look at abortion legislation, which is the Termination of Pregnancy Act, it allows abortion in certain instances, which is to say that when you've been raped, then you should be able to, abort if you have if it's damaging to your health or the health of the fetus, all of that, you're able to do that. But then the question that I was asking is, even though, yes, we do have these allowances, but when it happens that you're actually in that situation, there's a number of procedures that you have to follow.
Okay.
For instance, the court has to be involved. The doctors have to also, there's just a huge process before you can actually successfully be able to get an abortion.
So you're saying there are too many steps?
There are too many steps,
which
so
make
much so that
it impossible.
It makes it impossible. So even the reason why this law exists, the raison d'etre, is to ensure that people just don't abort willy-nilly, right? Okay, fine. But then when I've actually been raped and I do need to get the abortion, which I'm allowed to get by law, Now there's too many steps even for me who genuinely needs to have this abortion in terms of like what the law basically says. So like the case that I was saying, the Mildred Mapingwire case, this was a girl genuinely been raped and the law allows for that, but she fails to access it because the law that's supposed to protect her is not clear enough, doesn't really allow her to have meaningful access to it. So the first thing was we need to rethink our law. And the second thing was that doctors also need to know the steps that are involved. If you read the case of Mildred Mapingwire once again, you find that the doctor also didn't know. She went to the police also didn't know. She went to the courts also didn't know. So she was failed multiple times by the system because they didn't understand. So when we have a law, we want to ensure that the people who are providing these services also understand how it should be provided for. Then the other thing that I looked at was post-abortion care. Which is to say that, okay, fine, you've had your abortion, and even if you've done it in like you've done it at home or something of the sort, people are dying because there's not sufficient post-abortion care. And that was one of the things that I say to look at like what health means. Health does not mean the absence of disease. It means an overall wellness of like well-being. And so sometimes when that happens, or even when you have a miscarriage, this also affects women who have miscarriages because when they go to the hospitals, doctors and all of that are thinking that you've just had an abortion and not that you've had a miscarriage. And so that affects the kind of care that these people or women who've had miscarriages are also receiving. So this one issue of like termination of pregnancy or abortion affects so many people. It affects the people that the law is supposed to protect, number one, but also affects women who don't really have anything to do with it. Even though it's women's rights, yes, but when I've had a miscarriage, why must I be treated as if I've had a miscarriage or that I've broken the law?
So many issues, and I think you laid it all down in your research paper, I believe.
Yeah.
Are you not happy to have something with your name on it?
I'm super excited to have something with my name on it. Yeah, and also just, I'm pretty happy about it, honestly.
All right, that was the research insights. We were taking into abortion. We were taking a look into abortion legislation, and I believe this is quite a big topic, and actually laid it all out. I'm happy, and I'm sure that you need to also go and do and research that paper.